So we're going to talk about the Eyeonx X800 Camber Steady. Very interesting product. The purpose of this is to just reiterate the creativity and the innovation behind the design itself. It's a very revolutionary lens that IoT and Younger Optics actually collaborated on. So yeah, so for me, I'm a big advocate of knowing where you come from. Got to know where you come from to know where you're going, right? So it's a while to review just the history of ophthalmic lenses. So as you know, we all started with mineral glass. This was fantastic for that day and age. It allowed us to expand our own natural vision so we could actually read. But it was heavy because it was glass. And then later on, we saw the innovation of the bifocal lens. I don't know if that's really an innovation or not, but for the time period, it was great. We could see both far away and up close. And then, of course, in the 1960s, we saw where the first plastic lens came out. This was cool because we could wear lenses that were a lot lighter than the glass, and then we could also be fashionable, so we could actually tint these lenses. And then right around the late 60s, early 70s, we saw the first progressive design come out. And then, of course, in the early 2000s, right around 2005, 6-ish is when we started to see the digital revolution come around. And of course, this all leads up to Camber. And Camber is a very, very unique product. It is patented. So this allows us to have the best of what's been done in the past and new technology. So I can tell you all day long about a new technology. Oh, back one.
I know, I tried.
That's okay. So I can tell you all day long about a new technology. Anybody can come into your office or your clinic and say, hey, we've got something really great. But it's important to understand why technology is important and how it's relevant to your practice and your patients. So before we dive too far into Camber, let's take a look at what's existing and the pros and cons of all of it. So currently we have 3 types of technology that's on the market. We have our traditional or conventional technology. This is where we have the design on the front. This is done at the manufacturing level, not at the lab level. This is just basically done by monomer being injected into 2 glass molds. And so the progressive design itself is actually on the back of the front mold. And so after it's had time to cure for a little bit, it pops out of the mold and out as a semi-finished conventional lens design. So all we do at the lab level is we just grind in the prescription information on the back, right? It's not a personalized design. However, it was a very good replication of the original design. So it's great there, but it's not compensated or personalized. Optics are on the front side of the lens, so that's kind of controversial. Some people say it's better on the front or better on the back. And then also too, one downside to this particular technology is that when we're ordering this on a lab level, we have to worry about having a right, a left, and there's a multitude of different designs out there. So you have to choose which designs you want to carry, what base curves, what materials, what other technologies you want in it. So it can kind of fill up an inventory room very quickly. And then we have backside technology. Then we have backside technology. This is where we take a spherical blank and we do nothing to the front, but we are simply laying the design and the prescription information on the back. Now this is great because we can actually fabricate this on a lab level instead of having the manufacturer do it. So it's done on a spherical blank. So you've got one base curve on the front. This is a personalized and compensated design. So this is very, very good technology. And you don't have to worry about filling up that lens inventory room as much with this, because the only thing you're going to be concerned with this particular type blank is just base curve, what materials, maybe if you want polarized or photochromic technology in it. So, and then next we have dual side lenses. This is where we have part of the progressive on the front and part of the progressive on the back. It is a compensated, personalized design. However, there are some downfalls to this. Number one being inventory. Again, you're going to have to worry about what design you want to carry, because remember, there's already part of the progressive on the front. You're going to have a right and a left, and decide what kind of technologies you want, such as, you know, photochromic or polarization technology. So there's lots of things to decide from, and you're going to fill up that inventory room again. The other downfall to this particular technology is that on a fabrication level, you have to line up the back side and the front side just perfect. So there's very little room for very little wiggle room for error on this. So you have to make sure it's fabricated just perfect. So how can we bring the best of what's old and the best of what's new together to avoid any of those old disadvantages? The unique camber technology allows us to combine all three of these technologies. So now we're able to put the best on the front and keep the best on the back, right? So let's see a little bit more on how this is accomplished. So if I told you maybe a good tagline for camber would be combining digital technology with traditional optics, right? That might be a good tagline for this particular product. But at the core of the technology is the understanding of why the front surface or base curve of a lens is so important in the lens design. So once we understand this, then we can understand how the camber's variable curve can be used to improve digital freeform. So back in the day when we were still surfacing conventional or traditional technology, we were able to call the lab and say, hey, I need this on a 6 base or an 8 base. Somewhere along the line, when the digital revolution came about, we were told, don't give us this information anymore. Base curve is very important, and it's something that's often overlooked. So let's take a look at why it's overlooked sometimes. Now, when we talk about lens fabrication, go ahead and hit there you go. So when we talk about lens fabrication, we know that we can create different powers different ways. So for instance, a +4, we could use an 8 base lens and just grind in a -4 on the back, or we could use a 4 base lens and make plano on the back. Same thing with a -4. We could use a 4 base lens and surface in -8 power on the back, or we could do a plano base and just surface in a -4 on the back. So there's lots of ways that we can produce these powers, but it's important to understand which one of them has the least off-center astigmatism. So I'm going to get a little historical on you for just a few minutes. There was this really super smart guy named Wollaston. This was right around the early 1800s. He was experimenting with different lens forms to determine which lens shape was best for each power. So he created a series of very thick lens forms that were nonetheless very crisp from edge to edge, but because of the astigmatism produced at the front and the back surface, it did cancel each other out. This was great, but if you look at the chart here, you can see he was taking a -5 and putting it on a 20 base, which is something we would just not do in today's standards. Go ahead and click one time for me. One more. So later on, there came this guy named Oswald, and he determined that for every lens power, there is a specific and ideal base curve. So you can see here is indicated by those dots. He was looking more at the cosmetic side. So this is traditionally what labs will go with now, because we want good optics, but we still want to make it cosmetically appealing. So if you look at go back one for me. So if you look at the lines there under the 2, 4, 6, 8, and 10, you can see those are the standards that we use. So for perhaps a -5 power lens all the way to a 10, we may put that on a 2 base. It's going to flatten it out. The optics are still good for the patient, but it's also going to flatten it out and make it look more cosmetically appealing. So this is where we get the standards for today. Perfect. Now, we have a problem with a progressive lens design, right? Because we've got multiple powers running in there. So we're expecting one base curve to be good for all of these powers. We know that the labs are going to typically choose the base curve for the distance power, right? So let's say in this example that in our distance we're a -2. Well, we know a flatter curve is going to make that look a lot better. We definitely wouldn't want to put a -2 on an 8 base or even on a 6 base. When we get down to the add power of this progressive lens design, we know it's going to be more plus power down there, right? So the base curve that we're using in these spherical blanks are not exactly going to be the best for this area. Cosmetically, it's great, but it's not always the best optically. Go ahead and hit it one more time for me, please. And one more time. So here we have a dilemma that we faced as labs. We were producing this great digital technology. We were able to deliver personalized and compensated technology to our patients. But unfortunately, some of the patients in the higher plus prescriptions were not adapting to it very well because we were expecting that one base curve to take care of all of those powers in that progressive design. One thing that we did remember is the traditional and the conventional design actually did have a varying base curve built into it. So the Younger and the IO team kind of got to thinking about this and thought, how can we combine these things? When we were trying to compensate these prescriptions as well, we were having to use up all of our compensation tools to make it work rather than optimizing the lens. So this was the real dilemma for us in backside freeform, was figuring out how to combine all these things to make this work for patients. So now let's take a look at the Camber lens blank and why it's so unique and why it's so different from the standard blank. So you can see these two blank examples here. The one on the left is just a spherical standard blank. No matter which way you clock it with a lens clock, it's going to say 650. Now, if you look at the lens on the right, this is the Camber blank. Now, mind you, it comes in a variety of base curves, and we'll discuss that here a little later on. But in this example, you can see in the optical center, it starts at a 650. When you progress up to the top, it flattens out to a 550. And then as you go to the bottom, it steepens up to an 850. So this kind of gives you an idea of how we're trying to make the proper base curve go exactly where it needs to go in that progressive design. Now, I've had some opticians, go back. I've had some opticians ask me, ironically, if this looks like a pregnant lens. It does not. You can see indicated by the black line there, it's just a little steepness at the bottom of the lens blank. It's not going to be noticeable. It's a very subtle change. But I want you to notice on this illustration here, it's flatter at the top, steeper at the bottom. This makes a world of difference. So we're able to have the proper base curve out of the distance. And then as we gradually get to the add power in the bottom of the blank, it steepens up a little bit, really opening up that add power. So this is what makes the Camber lens design and Camber lens blank so special. Now, if we take a side-by-side comparison, or we look at these two lenses on a graph, click one more time for me. If you look at the graph here, you can see where the standard blank, the single vision lens blank, really has no magnification there. It is what it is. But if you look at the Camber lens blank on the left side, you can see as you go down to the bottom of the blank, it actually does magnify. And if you compare both of the blanks side by side, there's virtually no difference. Again, it's a very subtle change. Your patient won't notice. And actually, when you go back and think about it, the conventional lens design did the same thing and nobody noticed that either. So let's talk about the actual finished lens itself. So here we're going to take a look at how it's surfaced, or how it's fabricated, how it is has the design computation actually considered. So what we're trying to do through compensation is we are trying to, we are analyzing thousands of light rays over and over again at different focal lengths. What we're trying to do is modify the backside of that lens just so to where that beam of light goes directly into the retina or the fovea. Again, we're doing this at different ranges because a progressive lens design is going to have different focal ranges. So we do this at the far, the intermediate, and the near.
Okay.
And this is not going to have any sound to it, but this is just how we bring all of the ingredients to make the cake together. So you have to start with the camber curve, the camber blank, variable base curve, and then behind that, we have the actual camber design computation here. If you look at it, it really looks like a jumbled mess of nothing. And then, of course, we have to add in the patient's parameters and prescription information. And fusing that together with the design computation, this is where it all starts to make sense. And then once it's fused with the camber lens blank, you can see that it makes this wonderful progressive that makes a lot more sense than what it did when at the beginning of the screen. You can actually see where a design is taking shape here. So this is how we incorporate all of that technology together.
Great.
So we have 6 premium designs within the Camber family. So let's take a look at some of those designs. The cool thing about the Eyeonx lens series here is that we're able to really have a deep discussion with our patients and find out what their needs are. Now, I will say the X800 Steady would be the go-to of all of these lens designs. The reason for this is because there's some great technology that we're going to talk about in the next couple of slides. But this is a great go-to. It's very balanced in the distance, intermediate, and the near, so it makes a great first choice. The X800 Mobile is going to be for that person with a busy digital lifestyle, somebody that likes to be on those digital devices. This is where we incorporate a technology called Smart Ads. So this just helps us to address that patient being able to get into that reading area faster in those digital devices. And we're also considering the posture too, because sometimes we're more relaxed when we're looking at digital devices. Then we have the X800 Near. So again, this is where you can really have an in-depth conversation with your patient. So for instance, they're a school teacher and they tell you, oh, well, I do a lot of up-close work. I need my intermediate, I need my reading. I don't really use my distance as much, but I do need it for driving. So this would be a perfect lens design for them. This is where we're actually able to open up the reading area with this design a little bit. And then the X800 Distance, you can see we're actually opening up the distance portion of this design. So say that you have somebody that is a higher minus, maybe somebody that utilizes their distance much more than that school teacher would or that accountant would. So they need a progressive lens design that opens up more in this area. So you're able to do this. And then the X800 Fast Adapt is going to be a softer design. So we used to call this the training wheels of progressives, but I will tell you honestly, the other 4 designs with the Eyeonx lens series here are designed so great that we see a lot of good results in wear trials when we're putting people into these designs for a first design. And then finally, we have the X800 Office. We're going to talk about that a little bit more in depth here in just a minute. This is going to be more of a digressive design. So this is going to be for reading only, up close work, office work only. So the Eyeonx lens series here, all of them are compensated, fully personalized. But I want to kind of draw a little bit of attention to I wanted to draw a little bit of attention to the X800 Steady. This is a very, very popular design with us, and there's good reason for that. We see a lot of great results in our wear trials with this particular design. It extends the visual fields and offers minimal lateral distortion for the patient. It is recommended for first-time wearer or even that experienced wearer, and it also provides less swim or image stability for that patient. Go ahead, Shannon. So the steady methodology, we drew our inspiration from the Steadicam. So if you're a sports fanatic like I am, I love football. You'll notice that as the camera's going back and forth, the camera is actually pretty stable. So we wanted to incorporate this in a lens design. So this is where we got our inspiration from. Now we're going to get a little bit techie. These are just some generic mappings of the Steady, and then of course of other progressives. So the other two progressives are going to be the ones on the left. You're going to see a cylinder map at the top. And if you look at the box there, you'll notice that there's a lot of red. Red indicates a lot of astigmatic error. So if you look at the cylinder map on the right, which is the Camber Steady, look at in that same square box, you can see where there's a lot of yellow. So this lets us know that after the Steady methodology was applied, we were able to get rid of some of those cylinder errors there. If you look at the two maps at the bottom, the one on the left, again, is just another general progressive. Taking a look at that square box, you can see that there's a lot of lighter blues there, and the lighter blues are indicating a lot of astigmatic error there, peripheral distortion there. After implementing the Steady methodology, if you're looking at the spherical map bottom right, you'll see that there's a lot of deeper, richer blues there. So after we applied the Steady methodology, we saw a lot of corrections in these ranges, or in the lateral portion of the Steady design. So simply what we did is we figured out a way to correct a lot of the spherical errors that run laterally in the progressive design itself. We all know there's going to be spherical distortion, right, or lateral distortion. So when we implemented this technology, not only were we able to correct a lot of the spherical errors, but we were able to correct some of the cylinder errors. Again, this is going to promote image stability for the patient, reducing that swim, so it's going to be very comfortable. I told you earlier about the X800 Camber office. Perhaps this is one of my most favorite designs that we offer. Again, this is going to constitute having a very in-depth conversation with your patient, really understanding what their needs are. So let's take a look at the green shaded area. That's going to be the Camber office, X800 office 1.3. 1.3 is in meters, equating to feet. It's going to be about 4 feet. So everything on the desk, the keyboard, the monitor, everything's going to come in super, super clear. There is no distance with this design whatsoever. This is a digressive design. If you look at the blue shade there, this is going to be the X800 2 meter equating to about 6.5 feet. Think about a principal, a high school principal. We know that they sit at their desk a lot, right? So this may be great for them because they'll be able to see that monitor along with the keyboard and other things on top of their desk, but they can also look across their desk and see who is sitting across from their desk very clearly and sharply. Then next we have the red shaded area, which would be the X800 Camber 4. This is going to equate to about 13.5 feet. So if you have somebody that is maybe an artist or a painter, maybe whatever they're painting or sculpting will be at that range. So I'm sure you can think of a variety of different patients that would be able to utilize that. The yellow shaded area is going to be the X800 Camber Office 6. This is going to be about 19.5 feet. So think of this scenario. If you are somebody in a conference room and you need to see very clearly across the room, you can do this with this design. You'll have very, very clear intermediate up to about 19.5 feet. Now, it's important to keep in mind, these are digressive designs. They are occupational only, never drive in them. But you can see how they would fit a multitude of different occupations. Okay, so the benefits for the patient, we're using 2 surfaces, so we're giving them the best possible optics that we can. All of these designs are fully individualized and customized. We're increasing the magnification in the near area by steepening up that base curve on that blank at the bottom. Wider reading area that's easier to find for many of these wearers. Better vision in the reading area, and this is typically a neglected part of the lens, so we're really making sure to address that need with this particular design. Patients also reported to us improved distance, which is really great. And it's also more cosmetically appealing for some of those higher prescriptions. It's very easy to adapt to, and overall in our wear trials, we saw where wearers just preferred camber. So it's truly an advanced lens like no other. So you're expanding that prescription range to serve more patients, very thin, more attractive in many different prescriptions. So if you have a higher plus prescription, this would really help thin it out. Fast adaptation, clear peripheral vision with less distortion peripherally. Very appropriate base curves in all of those needed focal zones, right? Because we knew that the spherical designs don't address this all the time, and many prescriptions that are higher plus really suffer in the reading area. Spacious reading zone, easier to use and easier to find. So overall, it's going to be an outstanding visual performance or visual experience for the patient. Comes in a very wide availability. Go ahead and click for me, Shannon. So it comes in plastic, polycarbonate, Trilogy or Trivex, 160, 167. It also comes in clear, new polar, and transitions. Transitions 8 and also driveware. I apologize about our animations there. Something's not right with them today. Okay, so they're available in all materials, like I said before, and then also we have a variety of base curves. So you can go from the very flat 50 base all the way to an 8 base. So we can accommodate a full range of prescriptions. Okay, so that's it for me. We will take any questions that you may have. You can just drop them in the chat box and we'll address it at the very end. So for now, I'll turn it over to Tina.
Hey, great. Thanks, Shannon. Okay, so I get to talk about the fun stuff for us at IoT because we're nerds. We're going to talk about the new technology release. Shannon, I'll just, yeah, when I pause, just move forward. Oh, did we miss a slide?
I don't think so. This animation is glitchy. I'm so sorry, everyone.
No,
okay. There's nothing in between.
Okay, so what I'm going to talk about is something called Digital RayPath 2. This is a new foundational for us at technology for us at IoT. So all of the companies that make really good freeform digital lenses that are personalized and compensated, we have something called a ray trace technology. And our ray trace technology initially was called Digital RayPath, and we're about to replace it, which is a really big deal. I'm unaware of any other company ever doing this, but we've rebuilt it from the ground up, and we're calling the new technology Digital RayPath 2. And the new technology has the ability to take in new additional elements when it creates a design for the wearer. And I don't know if you guys know this, but everything that you put into the RX form for the laboratory, if you take personalized measurements like wrap or vertex distance, the frame measurements, the frame shape, the base curve of the lens that the lab pulls, all of those elements go together in what we call an LDS, a lens design calculator, and we use them to create a design for every single patient individually. This is why we call them personalized lenses. So the system that does that, the old one was called Digital RayPath. The new one is called Digital RayPath 2. And Digital RayPath 2 has a lot more sophisticated math. And so it can do more and take in more elements within the couple of seconds that it takes to design a lens. And this takes literally like 4, 6, or 8 seconds, depending on the style. We'll get to watch that process a little bit later in my presentation. So this is about Digital RayPath 2. This was the slide I was looking for. You can go on to the next one.
So sorry.
No, don't worry. All right, so we're going to start out with some obviously marketing images, right? I like marketing images because I'm in marketing, but they show us some things. And I think, Shannon, can you go back 2 slides?
Mm-hmm.
Something is definitely happening. There, here we go. Oh,
it's coming.
Here we go. This is exactly what I want. Okay, we're going to look again and again and again at one prescription, and that prescription is +3, +1. I don't remember the axis, but we'll look at it. And what we're looking at here is what an average prescription, a standard prescription, like a -4, -3, would look like looking through a regular finished single vision lens. So when the wearer is looking right through the center of the lens, what we think of as their area for visual acuity, everything is nice and crisp. But as their eye wanders away from the center of the lens, you can see things get fuzzier and fuzzier. That's a real life experience for wearers, and that's why we do all these fancy customized lenses. Now, it's a really big deal in progressives because we're talking about smaller visual areas to begin with, but it can also be a big deal in single vision lenses, especially for higher prescriptions or wrap frames. So this is a standard toric lens, middling prescription, kind of what the wearer experience would be if they let their eye wander around the lens. The next image, here we go. No, one in between.
Got it.
This is really glitchy. I don't know what's going on. Okay, this image is what digital ray path did. So what digital ray path did in an average prescription like this is it opened up that field of view by about 4 times. And where the power got off, it was much less off. So in a standard toric lens in the prescription we're going to look at, the power could be off way on the edges of the lens by as much as 2 diopters. With digital ray path, we could bring that in, and in this kind of prescription, it would be like 0.75 diopters or less. But you still have the same image, right? We're not making a perfect lens by any means. Okay, Shannon, last image. There we go. Digital ray path 2, we say, pushes the limits of geometry and lens personalization and can really open that up. So we're going to look a little bit, hopefully, at how it works. Just so you can see really quickly, standard lens, digital ray path 2, the differences. All right, so in digital ray path, every direction of gaze is associated with a distance in object space, right? So if someone, think about a progressive lens, if someone is looking through the top of their lens, we have that set for their vision at infinity beyond 20 feet. If they're looking through the bottom of their lens, we have that set at about 40 centimeters where someone would read, an average patient would read. And then what we do is we determine where in the lens they want to see that distance, and we correct the lens for that point in the object space. Go ahead, Shannon. With digital ray path 2, we can do a lot more sophisticated math in the same amount of time. So rather than a point in object space, we can correct for a volume of object space. So we can say, hey, at the bottom of the lens, I want to see from 20 to 50 centimeters. In the top of the lens, I want to see whatever it is. So a whole volume of space. And that makes sense, right? If you think about it, that's how we use your eyes. If I'm sitting at my desk and I'm looking at my phone and my coffee cup, these are in 2 different places. I'm looking at a volume of object space. So these are the 2 together. A point is a point, or a point is a volume. All right, now we're going to get into more technical things. This little ghost eye is probably our last marketing image for a while, but pay attention to this. So this is a representation of ray trace technology. You can see that the green line is like the ray. It goes into the eye. We wanted to focus on the fovea. Every one of those green dots across the surface of the lens is a direction of gaze, right? So think of it like a pixel or you know, the resolution on a screen. And what we do is we make a correction for whatever's happening in space at every one of those green dots. Green dot is a direction of gaze. Now we're going to look at some real data. We're going to look at some 3-dimensional scatter plots. So this is a 3-dimensional scatter plot of a certain prescription, and here's our prescription up on the right, +3, +1 at axis 45. And what you're looking at here is a 3-dimensional graph, and there's a black dot. That black dot is our target prescription. This is what we want the wearer to experience everywhere they look in that lens. The green dots are all of those directions of gaze we looked at the previous slide. So every direction of gaze, this is the power they're seeing. And you can see that this has 3 axes on the graph. The up and down axis, this is just plus and minus sphere power. The side to side axes, these are ways of looking at cylinder power in a linear form. So what you need to know is the further away the green dot is from the black dot, the more off the power is for the wearer in diopters. And if it's up, it's plus power, and if it's side to side, it's cylinder power. So in this prescription, you can see that 89% of any direction of gaze is falling outside the region of null blur. That means there's more than 0.18 diopters of power error from the wearer's perception, so they're perceiving it as blurry. In this image, we're representing the region of null blur, where the power error is less than 0.18 diopters in the red globe. So even in this kind of middle prescription, most of the lens, 89% of it, is blurry for the wearer. So they train themselves to look right through the center of the lens. This is what we did with digital ray path. Now it's going to look like the globe is bigger. It's not really. We just zoomed in on the image. But the idea with digital ray path and these kind of geometric based systems is to get the green dots as close to the black dot as possible, so the wearer has a wider area of good vision, and where the vision isn't so great, the power difference is less. So in this case, 57% of any direction of gaze is falling outside of my red globe, but it's not too far. You can see from the black dot to the furthest away green dot, it's only like 0.6 diopters. So their vision is a lot better, and they've gone from seeing 11% clearly to seeing over 40% clearly, 4 times bigger. And when they get out to the edge, it's not as bad. Tons better. Digital ray path 2 went a step beyond that. And in order to do this, we kind of had to rebuild our technology from the skeleton up. So that's why we call it a new foundational technology. But there's a secret to the human eye. And the secret is the human eye can create power. It can always create power. Whether you're an advanced presbyope or not, you always have the ability to create power, but you can only create one kind of power with your eye, and that is plus spherical power. Okay, so we cannot make a perfect lens. We're always going to have green dots that fall away from the black dot. What we did here is we ordered these lenses, these green dots, so that if they had to be there, they went in one direction, and that direction was minus spherical. Why minus spherical? Because the eye can make plus spherical. So once we could take that into account and do the math fast enough, we knew we weren't dealing with a globe, but rather a capsule. And the capsule at the top and bottom is the limit of we want the eye to do the rest of the work. So here that we're looking at from the top and the bottom to the bottom about 0.6 diopters of spherical plus power, which eyes can easily make in this particular circumstance. So now, because we've ordered our green dots, 99.5% of any direction of gaze is fully optimized, falling inside the region of null blur. And the difference here, like I said, was in that more sophisticated math and being able to do that quickly in the calculator when the lens is made. Any questions? Got all the technical stuff here. All right, we're going to show you a MATLAB video.
Oops, sorry.
So this is a video what actually happens in the laboratory when they create your lens designs. We have a model of what we want every design to look like. We pull in all of the data that the laboratory has that you give, and then we do calculation after calculation after calculation, trying to make the green dots fit in the globe as much as possible. So we run a system of calculations making the design for every patient. And it happens this quickly, actually more quickly. We slowed this one down. You might have to hit play on that video, and there's no sound, so it'll work.
I don't see any play, but I'm going to try. Oh, here it is.
There we go. So every little stop in the animation is the calculation happening until, you know, the bird is in the cage, until we get the design we want to get. That's what really happens, and this is a real job. Now we're back to some marketing images. This is how we show this in blur maps. And what a blur map represents is the difference between the target prescription and the prescription the wearer is perceiving. And you can see we always include a little dioptric scale. So in a standard lens, optimal correction area is about 50% in this one. In a digital ray path lens, it's about 75%, but in digital ray path 2, we can get optimal correction area of 100% in this particular RX. Now let's look at this in real life. This is again a blur map, but this is a real one, and we're still looking at our same prescription, +3, +1. On the left, this is a standard toric lens. If you were to pull a finished single vision lens off the shelf, this is what this wearer would see. You see there are 2 white lines in there, 2 little belts. The first one is 0.18 diopters. So inside of that, that's your region of null blur. They're seeing perfectly. The second one is 0.25 diopters. 0.25 diopters is one line on a Snellen chart. So they're losing a line of visual acuity at that point. So on the left is your standard finish lens. In the center, you see digital ray path. It's a whole lot better, but you can see there's still some area where they're getting beyond a quarter of a diopter. And then on the right is digital ray path 2. Now we talk a little bit about how we let the eye do some of the work. We let the wearer's accommodation engage a little bit. Let's look at what this does. In digital ray path, whether or not the wearer is accommodating, see those pictures stacked on the left? It makes no difference. The lens wasn't designed for that. It was designed to clean it up as much as possible, but there was no order brought to it because we didn't have sophisticated enough math to make that order happen in a couple of seconds. On the right, you can see what happens with digital ray path 2. Suddenly, this area where the lens isn't perfect looks a lot more symmetrical. Suddenly, it seems to make sense. So there's still that region of null blur, and when the eye engages a little bit, in this case about 0.6 diopters, the eye itself cleans it up. This isn't happening through their central vision, it's happening when they look off to the side. And again, this is something we do automatically all day long. So all we're doing is we're able now to design to complement natural processes that are happening. All right, what does that mean? What does that mean for our consumers? What does that mean for people who come into our shops and pay us good money for lenses? We're going to compare it to the past technology, digital ray path, and we're not going to bother to compare it to a toric lens because we're assuming you're already doing some high technology lenses. So in an average prescription, in an average frame, the increase in optimal correction area is 10%. But on the outside, give it a click, Shannon, it's up to 3 times. And I'll show you exactly what that data looks like. So what we did is we ran a series of about 359 lenses. And on the left axis, we can see the percent of area with blur below a quarter diopter. So that's the amount of the lens the wearer perceived as clear. And these green dots are all of these different corrections with digital ray path. And Shannon's clicking through some of the examples. Go backwards, please. There, just, yeah. All the way back. Okay. So on the green dots, you're seeing with digital ray path, and you can see that, again, this is a story of order, right? The order wasn't here. Sometimes jobs came out where the wearer would see only 20%, and sometimes jobs came out where they saw nearly 100. So not everyone's going to have an improvement, but on average, there's an improvement. But the big story here is that for the digital ray path lenses, we had to build a trend line because we didn't have the order. We didn't know how always every job was going to come out. With digital ray path 2, the blue line, that's really a plotted graph of every single one. And people always ask, like, where does it make a big difference? Is it strong prescriptions? You know, what is it? So here are some examples on the right. And Shannon, yeah, -7 had a huge, 50-some%. This is a -3, -0.5 at axis 130. They also had an improved viewing area of 50%. I wouldn't have expected to be that big, but sometimes they come out that way. Every job is different. 2 base -8, an improvement of 40%. And here's 4 base -1, -2.5, an improvement of 20%. They have a lot of cylinder, right? And then here's a 4 base -2, -0.5, only 10%. And this is my favorite. This is the I don't know why you got glasses guy, but even he saw a little improvement of 5%. On average, though, 10% bigger area for these standard jobs. Okay, we all know that all of these new technologies work best in challenging situations. Higher prescriptions, higher sill, oblique sill. One of the things we don't think about that makes a big difference, though, is frame size. So we did a special run of jobs to look at the data for large and wrapped frames. And there we saw an increase in average viewing area of 30% and up to 8 times. So that's where it made a huge difference. And here's that data, look at that. So huge improvement across the board, even though here you can see there were 3 little jobs up on the top right where it made no difference. But for the most part, this was a very big difference. And here's one of the examples here on the right. We have -1 in an 8 base where it had a difference of viewing area in 70%, which is huge. Not much of a prescription, big frame. Here's a -450 on a 9 base, increase in viewing area of 51%. Middling prescription, very high base curve. And then you can just run through some of the others a few seconds at a time, give it a little so everybody can see them. But what all of these jobs have in common? Big frames. So one of those things when you're thinking about high technology lenses that you want to consider is how much decentration the patient has or how big the frame is. If you've got a job where you know their eye isn't centered in the lens the way it should be, this kind of technology can make a really big difference. Okay. So that's digital ray path 2. This is the foundational technology. We're starting out with this technology on 2 single vision lenses. And it makes a big difference in single vision lenses. One thing we know about single vision lens wearers is they have miles and miles of accommodation. So they can accommodate up to 4 diopters, and we'll pull in our systems like 0.6 diopters of that. So it's making a big difference for them. And Shannon, I'm going to turn it back over to Shannon Anderson, and Shannon's going to talk about the 2 new products. Before we do that, are there any questions in the chat about the technologies? How do the distortion maps compare to a design not on camber blinks? Oh, I think that was for Shannon Anderson. So we'll bring that one in at the end, or Shannon Toller will bring that one in at the end. All right, Shannon Anderson, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you so much, Tina. And so sorry about the glitches, everyone. IoT is very excited to announce the launch of the new single vision designs, utilizing our latest innovative calculation technology, Digital Ray Path 2. Some of the features here that we can see that are most important are the aspects and characteristics that are included in each of the products, IoT Endless and IoT Endless Plus. We've got them listed here, and you can take a look at the features here for a second, and I will move on. When offering a new single vision lens, we should know the frequency of which a patient is suffering from their visual fatigue. The IoT Endless Plus version is more focused on those who suffer from digital eye strain regularly and are always. Both the IoT Endless and IoT Endless Plus lenses are perfect for all day, everyday use and are optimized for digital devices. The IoT Endless is perfect for wearers with little to no symptoms of digital eye strain or presbyopia. Can also be positioned as a no-ad anti-fatigue design due to the fact that it's got great results with digital devices. IoT Endless Plus is available in 3 ads, 50, 75, and 1 diopter. Each is designed for a specific type of single vision wearer who suffers from digital eye strain. It's based on the severity of their symptoms. IoT Endless is offered in an advanced single vision lens that allows for precise and comfortable vision in a broad range of frames. It can also be positioned as a zero anti-fatigue lens, a zero ad anti-fatigue lens, because it does consider all possible distances and the full volume of object space for a single vision wearer with full accommodation. Traditional personalized single vision lenses are optimized only for distance vision, but the new IoT Endless lenses are optimized for all distances, making them perfect for everyday use, active pursuits, and today's digital lifestyle. IoT Endless lenses are thinner than most stock single vision lenses. This reduction in thickness can offer the possibility of following the trend in frame design linked to larger sizes and newer shapes. So you can offer your patients thinner and more attractive lenses. Patients benefit from the impeccable visual quality, greater comfort, and a more precise focus, improve aesthetics, and the freedom in choosing high fashion frames. People are really spending more and more time in front of digital screens, and many experience the symptoms of digital eye strain, like headaches, blurred vision, dry eyes, neck and shoulder pain. IoT Endless anti-fatigue lenses are built on Digital Ray Path 2 technology, and that is designed to alleviate these symptoms of digital eye strain and improve reading speed for their screens. IoT Endless Plus is available in 3 power boosts, 50, 75, and 1 diopter. IoT Endless Plus lenses improve near vision with small near power boost. As mentioned briefly before, the lenses are available in the 3 editions, which reach out to all types of wearers. That is from wearers with just a few symptoms to even pre-presbyopes. Personalized free-form anti-fatigue designs typically have a slower adaptation for myopes because the addition creeps up high into the lens. And the new configuration used in the IoT Endless Plus lenses has the ad in the lower position, so there's really no effect on distance vision. As we can see in these maps here, 100% of the IoT Endless Plus lenses provide the wearer with optimal visual quality. Oblique aberrations are drastically reduced at full field, considering small accommodation adjustments by the wearer that allow for reduced blurring in the periphery. These small adjustments are made within a threshold that does not affect the visual comfort for the wearer. During the Endless Plus wearer trial, a statement was made by one of the participants. "I adapted very quickly to the glasses," they said, "and found them very comfortable on a daily basis." Patients benefit from impeccable visual quality thanks to the digital RayPath 2 technology. They have a more agile, precise, and comfortable focus with improved reading speeds on digital devices. They have the freedom in choosing high fashion frames, and they get the extra power in the near where they need it most, and still have excellent distance vision. So we just wanted to thank you all for joining us today for the presentation and learning more about how IoT works very closely with the partner lab here, Elevate Digital Optics, and Grant and his team. We'd like to keep our social media full, and we keep it interesting and add new information and sources of education. So please do feel free to follow us on there. And Grant, did you want to close with anything today?
Yeah, just thanks for the presentation and the information. It's a lot of information. So if you guys have any questions, let Mia or I know on Basecamp or give us a call. If you have any questions about how to prescribe them, what makes them different, if you forget any of this, we will be sending this out in a recording in the next couple of days, so you can refer back to it, and we'll link to specific timestamps like we did in the last one. So again, really excited about the new technology. We have not released the Endless designs yet, but we'll send something out to everybody once they're available on LabLink and available to order. But that should be probably done in the next couple of days, so look for them soon. But yeah, that's all I got. Thanks for the time.
Thanks, everyone. We appreciate your time.